Pheasant Productions presents the math of ESP, why it works even if you don't believe in it. Being video 76, being from the United States, Estancia, 1776 was the year of independence. So just for fun, we're going to use the idea of independence here as kind of the focal point of this one. And the reason I'm doing this is because you have so many people running around claiming independence and countries claiming independence and various things going on. You know, even the amusing, I don't quite know what to call them, but they're people that, you know, that run around saying that, you know, you shouldn't have a birth certificate because it makes you property of the United States, and this, that, and the other thing, and not paying taxes to the corporation of the United States and stuff like that. And I will agree with an awful lot of those things. You are not property of anybody for any reason. The United States is an imaginary idea. Yes, would be the only way to put it. It's not even a thing, because it's only the preconceived notion that we as a group are Americans, or we as a group are Mexicans, or we're Mexicans, or we're Americans, or we're Canadians, or we're Filipinos, or we're Chinese, or we're Russians, or we're British, or we're French. There's no difference, folks. You're all the same frickin' thing, okay? You're human beings. You speak different languages because you're in little pockets and little groups, okay? What are these groups? Well, you're not an independent thinker, you're a flock, okay? There's nothing wrong in the sense of being together with people and social status and all that kind. But when you reach the point where you are willing to let your country go to war on an issue that you don't have any clue about, but your country says, let's bomb the suckers! And yeah, sure, no problem, man, go do it. Go kill a few 100,000 people. You know, the 9/11, which, you know, anniversary was just up, I read about 2 years before it happened. To this day, I still get more people pissing on me because I know the truth than are willing to turn around and look at the United States for killing about, you know, 200,000 people in Iraq and Afghanistan solely because they arranged a farce to murder a couple of thousand, almost, I think a little over 3,000 people were claimed to have been killed in the 9/11 attacks. Everybody's running around screaming about the two towers, and nobody's thinking about there was a third tower. All the financial records of the current big banks and stuff were basically locked away in those buildings that got destroyed. The $73 trillion that Rumsfeld admitted the day before, $23 trillion is forgotten because we're too worried about these poor people that got killed by terrorists. It's one of those things, if you sit down and you look at the whole 9/11 thing, there are too many things that were wrong about what was going on for the United States government, the United States military, not to know what was happening, not to be involved in it. And anybody with any brain cells understands that if you have a little tiny fire way up here, how did it affect all this? All the jet fuel poured down the elevator shafts and melted it from the inside. Ask any firefighter. White smoke is a fire going out. Black smoke is an indicator that the jet fuel was burning. And you have that at the first little bit, and then it turns white. You see the fires dying out everywhere. And all of a sudden this whole building goes straight down the exact same way a controlled explosion does. If that building, or the second tower, or the third tower, was in any way damaged by heat, it would not go straight down on itself. A controlled demolition, which is done throughout the world, always tries to drop it straight down on its own footprint. And what do you have? You have three very beautifully dropped huge buildings that went straight down. They did not topple and take out 15 or 20 buildings around them. They did not do what a structurally defective system would have done. They did what a controlled demolition did. So yeah, there is no truth to that. The Pentagon, it has a little tiny hole going into it that just happens to be in the financial section where that missing $23 trillion is taken care of. You put an airplane in front of it and you realize, gee, there's a point of impact for the nose of the airplane, but there's no evidence of where the wings hit. There's no engines laying on the ground. There was no major pile of scrap left behind. There were a couple of pieces of fuselage that had little black marks on them. And then there's, like I said, there's this passport. I thought it was more than one passport, but there's this one passport apparently that did not burn up in the Twin Towers collapse. And the FBI, oh, look, we know it's this, we know it's this. Okay? But the black boxes, which are pretty close to indestructible, were never found, and there are 4 of those that should have been found. The engines on both of those airplanes were several tons apiece. None of those were found, and they operate in temperatures of a blue flame, which is about 2,000 degrees. You never saw any blue flame coming off of any of those towers, so the buildings and the towers never exceeded the operating temperatures of jet engines. Therefore, the jet engines could never be destroyed, ever. Too many pieces were designed to go above that heat range, and there's no way that they could have been destroyed. The collapse of the building may have hid some of it, but hey, let's face it, they removed all of that. They were literally going through and finding bits and pieces of human bodies. They can find a little chunk of bone, but they can't find a frickin' 2-ton engine. Yeah, so that's why I say there's too many things that are just totally illogical to ever conceive of the idea that 9/11 was anything but a U.S. military farce. Quite a farce, quite a fantasy. And because I read it 2 years beforehand, on 9/11, I'm out there trying to tell people, don't believe it, it's a farce. And they're saying, oh, you're fake news, you're fake news. What do you now hear everywhere on TV? What is Donald Trump's famous statement? It's all fake news, only I can be truthful. I'm Jesus Christ in the flesh. Fake news, fake news. I'm going to sue them because they're fake news. I'm going to censor them because I'm the President of the United States. It's fake news. Yeah. How many years later? Oh, yeah. 17 years later, and everybody and their brother wants to scream fake news every time they hear something they don't like. So this is herd mentality. This is not independent mentality. These are other places. They rant and rave about stuff that is so illogical, that is absolutely hilarious. And I leave these people in my feeds, and I literally have to just walk away from them because the same types of stuff are coming out that we should go to war, we should kill, we should murder, we should mayhem. And it's like, oh, you're trying to promote peace by first demanding everybody dies. Doesn't that get back to that Bible story of everybody has to die in order for one person to get into heaven? Yeah. So you see, that's the herd mentality. You're not looking at the list. You're not paying attention to the idea that SO2 in all the media circles about being the cause of acid rain, acidification of oceans, acidification of lakes, destroying the forests on the east coast of the United States. And in 1971, the United States became a petrodollar, which means that they had to have control of and maintain control of all oil-producing nations. And they do so by either donating millions upon billions of dollars of military weapons to them, or they do so by going in blowing the snot out of Libya and Syria and Iraq, because they were all going to sell oil for gold. They weren't going to sell it for US dollars. It violates the United States petrodollar if anybody sells for anything other than for US dollars, they sell oil or oil product, byproduct, for anything but US dollars. The United States takes a tumble. Iran, again, wants to sell oil for gold, so they are on the bombing list. We haven't figured out how to get in there and blow the snot out of them yet without actually just going over the country and blowing the snot out of them. Yeah. So there's this whole fantasy of what independent thinking is, because the first thing those independent thinkers do is run out and go jump on the bandwagon of some other group. Okay? I'm not a bandwagon. I don't have a million followers. I don't have anybody really paying attention. I've got the gods and the saints of your planet asking me, "Hey Pete, we designed you and you're and what you are and all to be able to beat the devil. The human race is El Diablo, and therefore you need to do something to beat them destroying this planet. We'd like you to try and keep at least a couple of genetic samples of humans alive so that we can try again." Yeah, right. Okay, I'm doing that. Here is why you need to do it. You are about to be faced with the plagues of Revelations and every other spiritual and religious prophecy on the planet. You are dealing with pollution that covers just about every other spiritual, religious, Bible prophecy possible. You're in a world of hurt. I'm going to walk in at the last second and try and figure out how to save your butts. Technically I can, because Operation ISS, making space shuttles out of garbage, getting people off the planet, teaching people how to live in space, and using those people to help the planet survive, and then what's on the planet survive. Yeah, I'd be beating the devil, wouldn't I? So, needless to say, yeah, it's amusing, but you don't have independent thought if the first thing you want to do is go join a group. You don't have the ability to be an independent. Picks up whatever the famous war cry of 3,000 years ago was, and go running forward with that. You're just simply a tag along what in the music industry we call groupies. Okay, they're so enamored by the music, and they're so enamored by a singer or a drummer or a guitarist or a bass player or whatever, that they literally, especially the women. The thing is that the groupie runs after these people, and they're so diminished when the person says, "Yeah, you're just a groupie. See you later. Bye bye. I'm on to the next city." Woman in every port, right? Military, women all over the place. What are military most famous for? Rape, pillage, and plunder. Yeah. Every military always ends up having some kind of problem where they give a bunch of lunatics guns, tell them to go out and shoot and kill, all they want. And then when they do so, and women are shot and killed, all of a sudden that same government says, "Oh, no, those are just some bad people. They walked out on their own. They have nothing to do with us. We didn't do anything to train them like that." Your whole system is built on that. So in the 1970s, I started using the slogan or the chant, "Fire them all and start over fresh." And this was because I understood the fascism system. And here we are, 2018, you're totally deeply involved in the United States being a fascist regime. You are totally buried in it and what's going on. Go register to vote. If you don't register to vote, you don't mean anything to the government. How about if you just all deregistered, refused to have anything whatsoever to do with that entire corrupt system, and started something all new? Wow! Suddenly that whole game ceases to exist. You've walked out of their ballpark. You've gone and done something different, and they are now stuck with the problem that they have an entire corrupt system that they cannot defend with any honesty. They can only defend with corruption. And nobody wants to play with them because it's like the old thing back in kindergarten. You don't like the guy playing with the ball, and go over to the box and get another ball. Go start another game somewhere else. You don't have to be a bully's victim. Change the game. Make it different. Occupy ISS underscore International Space Station is a revolution that teaches you to think and is working for the survival of everybody, including the jerks.